Hey guys, Bituna here, and today we have our final lesson for our Healer 101 class series for Resto Shaman, okay? We are going to be back at it with Holy Paladin next time, so if you are interested in that, make sure you are to like and subscribe to Big Tuna, but right now we will cover the offensive and utility powers of Restoration Shaman. If you haven't seen our previous video talking about the positioning of Resto Shaman in the arena, of course, it's in the upper right hand corner, but guys, the video is about to start. Hopefully you guys will learn and advance with your Resto Shaman journey, and I'll see you guys at the end of the video. So first we'll talk about your offense. What are we doing when we have the higher end pressure? We'll talk about damage first, since that is what most people are going to be familiar with. Most healers that are playing the game most likely have a DPS background, so doing damage shouldn't be too much of a problem for you. Damage is important to all healers nowadays, more important for other healers than, some different ones, mostly because every healer has their own rotation for their damage, and they also have certain benefits of doing damage. For example, Preservation Evokers, their damage is very impactful. Their Fire Breath hits hard, but they also have a Kleptomania Fire Breath, in the sense of their Fire Breath purges beneficial effects depending on how high they charge it. And if you don't know what Klepto is, Klepto used to be a spell for mages where they could spell steal, aka purge, every beneficial effect off the target. They changed it in this expansion, so it doesn't kind of work like that anymore, but we kind of use that as like the general mass purge term. So Klepto Fire Breath is very strong. They also have Disintegrate damage, which hits hard, but not only that, they have a talent where it'll hit harder, 20% harder, and regenerate mana. Holy Priests, they have a stun called Chastise. They're constantly resetting that stun with Holy Fire and Smite, so they're constantly doing damage, they're constantly resetting stuns, and they're getting more damage from stunning since they have certain proc interactions through casting their Chastise. Disciplined Priests obviously are built to be a DPS healer, since that's where most of their healing comes from, is through doing damage adequate to their healing. We also have Resto Druids that just do an enormous amount of damage. I mean, every single Wrath cast will hit for like 250k, Star Shard will hit for 300k, a lot of damage. Resto Shaman is definitely a little bit lower on the charts in terms of the damage value and the importance of your damage. Of course, it's not nearly as bad as, let's say, Cast Reaver Monk or Holy Paladin. Our damage could still be pretty impactful, but it's not as necessarily important / priority compared to other healers. But what are we doing in terms of damage? It's literally just Lava Burst. It's getting your Flame Shocks out there, casting Lava Burst when you can. Lava Burst hit for on average like 170k, maybe on a good day 180, 190k. In RBGs you'll hit for like 200k plus, since RBG Battleground damage modifiers are different compared to Arena. We have Stormkeeper. Stormkeeper is pretty interesting. Moment of cooldown causes your next 2 lightning bolts to deal 100% more damage and be instant cast. This used to be way more impactful, 150k, but it was a little bit on the kind of a sketchy side because it did so much damage, so back down to 100%. And then we have Lava Surge. The Flame Shock damage over time effects have a 15% chance to reset the cooldown of your Lava Burst and cause your next Lava Burst to be instant cast. So basically the same thing as Elemental Shamans have. These two talents, I'm not going to say they're dead talents. I think Lava Surge is definitely a dead talent, but Stormkeeper could have its uses. If you want damage, if you're doing 2s, you're doing RBGs, and you just want to do damage, hell, go for it. I still take these talents for RBGs when I want to do damage, when I don't want to just sit there and heal the entire game. You're going to Stormkeeper first just to get the, the buff up. Then you're going to Lava Burst. If you get a Lava Surge proc instantly, then you will Lava Surge after your current Lava Burst, and then you will just dump your Lightning Bolts in, Lava Burst, hopefully Lava Surge proc, into Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt will kind of showcase it here. And in this window, you can do around 800k damage in the kind of 2-second span. Why is that? Well, because Lava Burst damage is pretty nice. Lava Burst will equal to about almost like 300k, and in total like 340k total. And then Stormkeeper Lightning Bolts will generally hit for about 200k per Lightning Bolt, so combine those numbers, you'll get around 800k damage, and it's pretty good in that 1.5 second global. I've definitely helped global someone with my team. We get cross CC on all the healers. I got my Hex going. We have our double stun on the 2 DPS, and then I get my damage going in about that window, 800, about 750k damage, along with, our DPS's burst, and, we kind of cheese people. Purge is very awesome. Not that many healers have Purges. Dragons, as I said before, they have Kleptomania Fire Breath. Priests have Dispel Magic, it's pretty awesome, and then Resto Shamans have Purge as well. For Resto Shaman, it's a bit harder to go for those Purges because your healing output is a little bit on the weaker side comparatively to other healers, so it's going to be a bit more troublesome to find the globals, but we do have a spell that does kind of help with that just a little bit. We have Greater Purge. Greater Purge is basically a kind of amped up version of your normal Purge. If we know, normal Purge, spammable, removes one beneficial magic effect. Greater Purge is a 12-second cooldown, but removes 2 beneficial magic effects at the same time. So it definitely does help kind of sneaking the extra global in there if you can, comparatively to just spam purging, trying to get, you know, a certain buff. You can just throw it out there. If you get it, you get it. If you don't get the buff, you know, wait 12 seconds, you'll get it next time for sure. With Greater Purge, you definitely don't want to keep on sitting on this. Again, if you can't find the globals, that's completely fine. Just don't worry about it. But if you do have globals, you definitely want to get Purge in there. It's very important. Even if you don't get the buff that you really want to get, for example, I love purging altar times off of mages. It's pretty dope. But if I don't get the buff, boo-hoo, it's whatever. I'm still getting some buffs off of them. I like to say this, there's no such thing as a bad purge, only a good and a better purge. So even if I'm not getting that altar time off of that mage, I'm still getting his arcane intellect, or what, depending on what the healer he has, certain hots, you know, renews, or his powered shield, or his freedom, or his hots from Resto Druid, or his, you know, dream breath or reversions from the dragon. Whatever it is, I'm still getting valuable stuff off of him. It may not be the one that I want, but it's still beneficial to him, and it's still gonna hurt him. If you're running normal purge, the only reason I'd ever run normal purge is if we're facing like a Resto Druid and I can just spam purge him, and especially if we do have a comp that can kind of control the game in the sense of, you know, we're not going to be in danger outside of like maybe goes, but out of that, we will have control over the game. If I'm playing like Aflock as Priest, where, you know, we have so much control, so much CC, blanket silences, fears, peels, self-sustain, then I would be more confident taking a Purge, so I can just spam Purge whatever buffs the enemy has. Other than that, it might be a little bit more sketchy to where I might not be able to get those purges, so I will just run Greater Purge pretty much 90% of the time. CC, very important. Every healer has their own CC. I've talked about this in a previous video, but CC is very important. Every healer is different with their CC chains. Dragons have Sleepwalk, Resto Druids have Cyclones, Holy Paladins have Repentance and Hodge, Disc Priests have Fear, Holy Priests have Chastise and Fear, and Monks have Legacy Paralysis if they want, maybe even Song of Chiji. Resto Shamans have a pretty interesting toolkit when it comes to CC. They have Hex. We also have Lightning Lasso. I think Lightning Lasso is one of the best, not only healer stuns in the game, but just one of the best stuns in general. 4 to 5 second cooldown, does a lot of damage. In the arena, it'll do about like 100k plus damage, and just a single stun, like that's 10%, around 10% of someone's HP. It's a lot of damage. 5 seconds as well, which is one of the longest stuns in the game, and you can cast it while moving, pretty awesome. And then you also have Cap Totem. Cap Totem on its own is really bad, but because you have stuff like Hex and Lightning Lasso to kind of be the main star of your CC, Cap Totem doesn't feel as bad. AoE stun, 54 second cooldown, after 2 seconds will stun all targets in the 9-yard radius for 3 seconds. Generally, when it comes to your CC, you want to be covering the 3rd target as a healer. This comes through communication with your team, but if your team's not communicating and it's kind of up to you to kind of do your own thing, basically the 3rd target is what you're going to want to CC. The 3rd target could be anyone. It could be the healer, it could be the DPS, or sorry, the kill target, or it could be the off DPS. So whoever's not CC'd, that's who you want to cover. You know, my DPS is double stunning the 2 DPS. Cool, I'll cover the 3rd guy so they don't have to run over and CC the healer. I'll cover the healer. And generally, if you want to be CCing the 3rd guy, you want to be kind of near the 3rd guy. So if we're facing, you know, another melee comp, you know, my DPS are obviously going to be able to reach their melee since they're going to be on top of them. So 99% of the time, I'm going to be crowd controlling the healer. So I'm going to be at the enemy's pillar, or the pillar wherever my enemy's at. That could be, you know, my pillars over here on our starting room, their pillars over here on their starting room. So I could get my easy Lightning Lassos, easy hexes, easy interrupts, you know, and it's gonna make my job a lot easier than simply running across the map to try and CC this guy. But of course, make sure you're communicating with your team. Make sure you're communicating, you know, when your stuns are available, when you're all ready to go with your stuns, and of course, who you're going to send your stun on. Like I said, you're generally going to be wanting to cover the 3rd target, but if you each have your own individual roles, that's something you got to talk about in the starting room. If you can push in for CC, then you know what, you're going to be like, hey, you know what, I'm Big Tuna, is me. I can push in on this Druid. I can CC him, when we go. Great, that's awesome. Keep your stuns on him. You're facing double casters. It's not going to be as easy to push in on their backline to CC the healer. I'm not going to be able to, guys. I'm gonna have to CC our off DPS. That's completely fine. Make sure you're talking about this stuff in the starting room. Make sure you all know what you're going to be doing, so you're not in the middle of the arena deciding, mid-go what needs to happen, what needs to be stunned, what needs to be stopped. And then of course we have interrupts. Interrupts, kind of the same thing of your CC. Generally it's going to be communication. You got to communicate just like about your CC, who you're going to stun, who you're going to interrupt. Resto Shaman has one of the best interrupts in the game personally for a healer. Tough second cooldown, 2-second lockout. It's just constant disruption. It's not long, so no one's really going to die in a wind shear unless they're just really low, but it's just constant disruption. So make sure you're constantly getting those wind shears out. You should at least have a really solid number of wind shears throughout the whole game. But of course it comes down to communication. What is your team? What are you going to be interrupting? You have a ranged interrupt, meaning you can basically interrupt anyone. You can interrupt any of the caster DPS. You can interrupt the healer unless you're playing really far. But generally if you're playing kind of in the open, you have eyes on everyone, you can interrupt everything. But it all comes down to the comp you're facing and who can really get the interrupts. If you're playing a melee comp versus like double caster and you're going to be training one target, Afflock S-Priest. I always use Afflock S-Priest as my main example, but whatever. Afflock S-Priest, Resto Druid, why not? We're training the Afflock, and obviously they're both double casters, they're not going to stack up on each other. No one else is going to be able to interrupt the S-Priest except me. So I have to choose between interrupting the Druid or the S-Priest. Alright, Big Tuna. I can interrupt the S-Priest, I'll stop his damage, I'll continue interrupting Void Torrent. That's really the only thing you want to interrupt from as S-Priest is Void Torrent. Keep my interrupts on Void Torrent. Other than that, focus healer, I'll focus kick healer. Alright? Make sure everyone knows what they're going to be interrupting. You don't want to give your enemy precog all the time. I mean, my DPS, the amount of times they give everyone precog is just absolutely wild. Make sure you call out who you're going to be interrupting, who has the next kick available. This guy's casting clone on me. It's not good. Can we stop it? Cool, Big Tuna. I have next kick on clone. Communicate your interrupts. Make sure everyone knows what they got to do, what they got to interrupt, and you will find more success during your offense as a Resto Shaman. But guys, that concludes our Healer 101 class for Restoration Shaman. Next, we will talk about Holy Paladin. Holy Paladin is my favorite healer. Resto Shaman, my most comfortable healer, but Holy Paladin, I love the playstyle, I love the fantasy. It's absolutely amazing. So if you want to learn how to play Holy Paladin, you gotta make sure you are subscribed and liked to Big Tuna so you don't miss out on those videos. But guys, the video's over. It's summertime. Make sure you're drinking your water. Make sure you're drinking more than the average amount. It is very hot. Heat stroke can happen. Many other, heavy dehydration factors can come into play. Make sure you get those electrolytes in. If you're gonna work out, don't overexert yourself. But guys, it's over. Summertime's here. Make sure you guys are having a good time, and I'll see you guys in the next life. Peace.